Hey guys, uh, making another video here to show some more stuff I've been, you know, messing around with, and a couple people were asking about which is relative strength, and can you put a number on relative strength? Well, arguably maybe. So I'm just going to show kind of what I've been putting in as a layout for relative strength and what I've been playing around with, what kind of values I can get, and this is a lot of the stuff from the previous videos with trend intensity, um, and trying to wrap relative strength into it. I kind of did a little bit about relative strength um, in the last video, just chart wise, and I've been using that, and I'm kind of going off of that to try to um, categorize it in a way. And so I'm gonna kind of show what I've been doing, and hopefully, you know, it's of interest. If you want to try it out. So got this layout here, and I got my chart on the left, and what seems like a bunch of stuff on the right, and I'm gonna try to explain what's going on here. And so first I'm going to start with the chart, and then I'm going to go over to the watch list and what these values kind of mean. So what I have here is the SPY, and on the SPY I put a couple boxes here, and these boxes kind of are representing some pivots that the SPY has made that I like to view, and I think that these pivots can give a clue about relative strength. So I have these boxes, and these are price regions, and these are global price regions. So if I go to any name, I'll be able to see the same price region tool. So I can see for this drop in SPY, if I go to any name, I can see kind of what the name was doing and have the idea that that was during the drop in SPY. That gives me an idea of what kind of strength was this name showing. Was it showing any? Then I also have this kind of sideways action, and so I can see that I have this rise that we had in SPY as this blue box, and then finally I have this line, which is pretty much the same thing as these price regions, last to last line, and it's also global. It's like an extended line, and I'm putting this drop in SPY here, and I'm using this drop to kind of see also, if I go to other names, I can see the same line, and the last line will kind of show me, I already have the idea that this is for the drop in SPY, the recent one, and this last line will quickly show me what these things are doing overall. So I have those four things on the chart, and that helps. And then what I've done here, and I'll move over to the right with all the numbers and names and all that, and I have my watch list here, and these are just a bunch of names that have there's a scan for leaders and some ADR volume criteria here, and I've gone over this in the last video. This is a trend intensity ranking that I'm using, and also a tightness ranking that I'm using. So I basically, what I do is I kind of just sort this for high intensity names, and then I sort it by industry here, so I can quickly see, for example, biotech names. I can see the trend intensity leaders in that industry very quickly. So this is that same watch list, and then I'm going to skip over the middle part, and I'm just going to go over this really quick. This is the same thing. This is trend intensity, same as previous videos. Monthly, 1 week ago, this week, weekly, and 5 days ago, 3 days ago, and trend intensity daily, which I like to use a lot. and this is industry based. So I'm looking at the trend intensity ranking for biotech names in this example. So that's trend intensity. And then in the middle here, I've got, well, the relative strength. So going back to the SPY, I have these 4 boxes, or 3 boxes and 1 line. And this column is basically an assortment based on this price region, where I'm basically getting the percentage change of the related name compared to its industry. So if I go to the top one here, number 1, we get this one called Mac, and what it's basically telling me here is in biotech, this name here, Mac, had the highest percentage change compared to its industry during the SPY drop. So let me take it back for a second. And why is it how is it related to its industry? Well, if I click here, and I'll go over this too. If I click on this is biotech. This is the biotech index, and this biotech index has gone down a lot with the SPY during the drop, right? So compared to this drop, this has been the strongest name. And if you look, and if I go to a smaller number on this column here, you can see how, let me go to even smaller number. So you can see this name. This is a positive relative strength. The reason it has a positive relative strength, even though it went down, it's been stronger than the index during the drop. So it's been stronger than this biotech index. So that's how these numbers are being created. And you can see this in kind of different areas. So we have this is the orange box. Then we have the same thing for this. This is the relative strength on this rise. The relative strength during the range in SPY. So you can see really quickly TRVI came up as the strongest, the most strength in biotech during the sideways range of SPY. And then for the rise in SPY, you can see that this name had the highest rise compared to the biotech index, right? Because the biotech index was rising, but even compared to that, it was even stronger, and it had the highest rise in the biotech names. And then we have this recent drop. So this is where it can get kind of interesting, because you can start to see some more live data. So you can see how the SPY has had a drop. Meanwhile, this biotech name CLVS has risen very rapidly. So that's the relative strength. All right, we have trend intensity, and I jumped into this really quick, but this is the index. This is the relative strength of the index, and that's all that is just the percentage change. So you can see really quickly here, if I look at this, if I look at the biotech relative strength, you can see how it's grayed out here and here, and then it's positive here and here. So that's quickly telling me, if I'm on a biotech name, I can quickly see this on the bottom here, and I can see that it says that biotech didn't have relative strength previously, but now it does compared to the SPY. So that's pretty cool. On the bottom, this is the trend intensity of the index, and so you could see how sort of correlated. Trend intensity was weak, and getting somewhat positive trend intensity now on the most recent days, most recent time frame. So how do I use this? Okay, well, I use it in a very similar way to the trend intensity. So let me go and skip down to a name or an industry that's somewhat interesting. So we could see a couple names in farm products, okay? And what's interesting about farm products is you can see down here in its relative strength, you can see that farm products have had relative strength during pretty much each phase of the SPY's choppy-ish environment this year. So it's had relative strength during the drop, had relative strength during the range, had relative strength during the rise, and it has relative strength even during this next recent drop. So farm products is interesting. You know, you won't see a lot of industries that trigger like that down here. So I think that's interesting. So we have farm products here. I can, use my usual process of kind of looking at, names that are have a high trend intensity ranking. So I can see that Cressy, for example, has a high trend intensity. I'm looking at the most right here. It has a high trend intensity in its industry. I can see Agri also has a high trend intensity. And with this relative strength column, I can even click on this, and I can see LOCL had the highest relative strength during the recent drop in SPY. So you can see that with this line here. If we look at SPY again, this is dropping while this name is not. It's rising. Okay? You can see how this name is also in the most recent trend intensity. It's number 2 name. Another little thing I just want to mention for trend intensity, if you see these dots here, that doesn't mean it's a low trend intensity. It just means that it's a recent IPO. That just means that the trend intensity, there hasn't been a trend for that long to calculate a trend intensity for a weekly time frame or a monthly time frame. So that's a little bit of a nuance you have to kind of take into account when you don't see high trend intensity on the monthly or the weekly, that it might just be an IPO. So you want to take that into account and use your best judgment for that. So you can see how there's been high relative strength in this name compared to its industry, and the industry has relative strength. So that's something to think about. So that's kind of how I'm kind of using this. I use the trend intensity ranking. I can quickly see GFI, which is gold, has very high trend intensity on the trend intensity columns, and it also had relative strength during the SPY drop at the beginning of the year, but at this point in time, doesn't seem it doesn't seem like there's relative strength in this name, though that can change. Then you might be interested to say, okay, well, I'm looking at this yellow column here. There is something that's kind of peeking out, which is 0.42, and you can see that's Goro. Okay. So Goro has relative strength to its industry, and the industry has relative strength to SPY. So you can see quickly, if you want to compare, for example, just the relative strength against SPY, the name, you can just use this chart. You can just say, okay, so it went sideways, high, rose rapidly, rose again, and now it's straight. So it's straight sideways, and SPY. again, SPY. This is dropping. So that's the relative strength against SPY. Relative strength against the industry, and the industry has relative strength against SPY. So that's cool. I think that's that can give you an idea of the strength. So you can use that, and you can go through here same way as you would usually do. And then another thing you can do is, if you're curious, what's the relative strength? I want to see, if you wanted to see relative strength of industries stacked against each other, well, I'm looking at that too. So I've actually set up a little bit of a thing here. So if you drag this upwards, you can kind of forget this whole area here. This is the same type of setup as this. Same type of setup as this, but with the industries. So what you can see here is on the left you have all the industries, then you have these 4 columns, and then you have trend intensity columns. This is the same thing, and it's the same thing in the sense that this is the most recent drop in SPY, and that will be translated here. And this is just a straight percentage change translation. So it's just going to show what was the percentage change compared to SPY, right? So you can see here during the drop, aluminum did the best, right? And then followed by coal, followed by oil and gas drilling. And then you can see the trend intensity of these names. I could see the trend intensity here of coal oil and gas drilling is rising on the trend intensity columns. I can see that it's slightly downwards in relative strength against the SPY. And you can see that here. If I scroll down a little bit, I just found this highlight. That's how I did that. Well, if I want to know what's the strongest during this recent drop, it's grocery stores. So grocery stores is rising rapidly as the SPY is dropping. You can see its trend intensity is rising here in the columns. That's interesting to me. You can go down here and you can start to see these names and what they're kind of doing, and if you kind of just explore around this, you might get some interesting ideas. For example, this idea here, which is industrial metals and minerals. So if I look down here, and I can just, if this is a little bit confusing, you can look down over here. I can quickly see, just because it's colored and it's not gray, that it's positive. And what I'm seeing here is relative strength of industrial metals and minerals has been positive throughout this year. So it had strength when SPY was dropping. It had strength when SPY was sideways. It had strength when SPY was rising, and it even has a little bit of strength now. So you can see that kind of translated into the trend intensity. Decent monthly trend intensity here, and then it's also rising. And this is just, we're talking about the industry, right? So so this industry, in my opinion, strong industry, industrial metals and minerals. So you could see that kind of play out. So so that's the industry's relative strength setup. You can get a lot of ideas, I think, just from the chart. If I'm like scrolling through and I'm looking at the chart, I can kind of see. I feel like the last line really gives a big clue. Just this is sideways, and so that's interesting. And so you could see that sideways correlated here. It's 0.06. And then you can look over here to the industries, and you can see how it wasn't doing great during the drop, but it's doing okay now. So trend intensity is not really there. So yeah, that's that's what I've been using. And if you so it's one more thing is if you're over here and you're going through any random names, for example, you can quickly reference the industry's ranking here. So if I'm on leisure, I can quickly see leisure. This is the industry index. I can see the trend intensity of it. I can see the relative strength of it here. So that's that. I'm going to share this layout if you're interested to check it out. And I think that this will translate into the layout, these columns, but I am making these columns manually. So for this for this column, what I'm doing here, so I'm gonna delete the column just to show you how it's done. So I'm gonna just delete this, and what I'm doing here is basically I want to see the industry strength, relative strength of this drop, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna highlight this. I'm gonna hit space. I'm gonna go to custom date sort, which is how I do this, and this is percentage change, and I'm gonna click versus industry here. So when I click versus industry, it's going to take the industry's percentage change into account. So then I'm going to hit sort, and when I hit sort, you're going to get a bunch of these kind of options come up, and so like this is where the column's supposed to go, and so you have an option to add the column to the left or to the right. It doesn't really matter, I think, but I put it to the left here. So once I click on the left, it pops in right there. So and then I just go to edit, and to make this better, make it yellow for positive and make it gray for negative, and then I hit sort. And so that's how I get that. I do this for each section that I want or I'm interested in. So I hit custom date sort versus industry sort, and I put it there. I'm not gonna put it there because it's already there. So that's how I get that. And for the industries, I'm going to show you it's a little bit different. So I'm going to drag this up and show you the industries. Say, a new kind of variation has come up in SPY and I want to do that. So I'm going to just delete this. I want to do a new one. So I'm going to do this and get the drop. Nice, select custom date sort. And then for this, I'm just going to do percent change. So I'm going to sort this percent change, and I'm going to add the column right over here. It's on the left of this thing, and there it is. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to edit it. I'm going to make it yellow, positive, gray for negative, and I'm going to sort it. And then there we go. Now we've got that. So you could do that, and I basically do this for each section here, and then I do the same thing for industries here for this percentage change, and that's how I get that ranking. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. If any updates are needed, which they will be because this is not automated, this is you'd have to change this if there's more information you want to rank. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Hope that's of interest, and hope that maybe some ideas can form from exploring that kind of idea for relative strength and compared to trend intensity. Yeah, hope that helps. Thanks.